Super. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being patient in our waiting room. We're going to give a few minutes for folks to join our meeting as they sort of filter in. So just a couple of minutes, but welcome to our West Denver Safer Streets, Irving and Bates meeting. Excited to have you, and we will just connect with you in just 1 minute. Hi, if you're just joined us in the last minute or so, we're just waiting for a few people to join. A couple of things we want to point out that if you, we're going to do questions through the chat function tonight, so if you get kind of familiar with that, and we can kind of walk you through that. But you'll see some messages coming through the chat from our project team. Welcome you here, and there'll be some information provided that way as well. So just let's give 1 more minute. Okay, thank you for your patience. Just want to let all the community members have time. And if people join us late, we'll sort of circle back on a few things. But welcome to our meeting on Irving and Bates. So this is our West Denver Safer Streets project. My name is Chris Vogelsang. I'm the consultant project manager. I'll introduce some other folks going to be speaking today as well. But first, I wanted to get through our language interpretation and make sure that everyone knows how to choose the correct audio channel they'd like. So this slide gives you the directions, but we also have Ruth, who is our interpreter tonight, and she's going to speak now and introduce you to that function. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Hola, buenas tardes a todos. My name is Ruth, and I'm here with the CLC, the Community Language Co-op. And I, first of all, want to say thank you to everybody here for prioritizing health equity through language justice as much as possible. We always want to make sure that everybody's able to speak, read, listen, and participate in the language of their hearts, meaning the language that they speak at home with their families. So once we finish this presentation, we'll go ahead and turn on the interpretation option. You will see the globe icon come up at the bottom part of your screen. If you are on a tablet or a cell phone, you will see 3 dots that say more. The option will show up there. Tonight we have English and Spanish, so feel free to choose your channel. You can always say mute original audio if you don't want to hear the person speaking in the background. And if you have any questions, you can let me know through the chat box. I'll be more than happy to help you. Entonces, hola a todos los que están aquí. Muchas gracias a esta organización por siempre asegurarse de priorizar la equidad de salud a través de la justicia del lenguaje, tanto como siempre sea posible. Nuestro trabajo es asegurarnos de que todos los que están aquí puedan hablar, leer, escuchar y participar en el idioma de sus corazones, es decir, el idioma que hablan en casa con sus familias. Cuando termine de hablar, vamos a encender la interpretación. Ustedes van a ver el icono del globo terráqueo que va a aparecer en la parte baja de su pantalla. Le puede hacer clic, seleccionar su idioma. Hoy tenemos español e inglés. Si tiene un celular, una tableta, puede buscar los 3 puntitos, hágale clic a esos puntitos y ahí va a salir la opción del lenguaje. También pueden apagar el audio original para no escuchar a la persona en el trasfondo hablando. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor déjenme saber. Voy a estar disponible en la cajita del chat. Y es todo. So that's all I have. Thank you so much. Oh, also, sorry, if you are presenting, please keep in mind to speak at a conversational pace, just to make sure that we have enough time to interpret everything in the back. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. It's a good reminder to us presenters. We get excited sometimes. So we'll try to go at a good pace so everyone can participate and join in. So just to reintroduce, so we're here to talk about West Denver Safer Streets, Elevate Denver Bikeway projects, and specifically about Irving and Bates Avenue. Thank you for joining. Here's a few housekeeping. I know everybody's been at a lot of virtual meetings lately, but we've muted everyone to minimize distractions from background noise from the audience. We're really trying to use that chat window to provide input during the presentation and do questions and comments. We're actively monitoring that with a few folks, both English and Spanish speakers. So we'll be able to address your questions in that way. We are going to have several question and answer periods during the meeting. So we'll look at your chat questions and then we'll pick some, answer them, and then any other questions we didn't get to, we will follow up with in a document that we'll post on the website. So all the questions will be answered. The chat's also really important because it gives us a record. And so we can go back and make sure we understand what everybody said and it's good input. And we're also recording this meeting so we can post it live later. Let me introduce the folks that will be speaking tonight, or I'll let them introduce themselves. Like I said, my name is Chris Vogelsang. I'm the consultant project manager working for
our community designer, helps a ton of projects get done and coordinated in the city. And then we also have David Pulsifer from the planning team as well here tonight to help answer any questions. And I will turn it back to Chris.
Thanks, Geneva. So it's just good. We'll remember to turn our video on when we're speaking so that you can see our faces. That'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to pass to Ms. Hooten to kind of lead us through the beginning of this meeting.
Thanks. So as Chris was talking about, we are coordinating 7 different projects. All of these are Bikeway project goals. And tonight we're going to really do a deep dive on the 2 projects here of Irving and Bates, knowing that there's a huge geographic disparity between all of these projects on the west side, and we want to be able to really have a deep dive and a conversation. So if you were able to join us on the 11th of February, we had lots and lots and lots of questions, and we have worked on a frequently asked questions document that we will, maybe we can link to that in the chat. And we're gonna go into some of those projects more this evening and help answer additional questions. We're really excited. We're going to be sharing concept designs tonight and providing you an opportunity to learn how to provide input in this virtual environment. Next slide, please.
I do have one. I did not forget, but I wanted at this point to interject a little. And we do have 2 council people with us that I want to recognize. So Councilwoman Torres and Councilman Flynn. And I'd like them to have just say a few sentences. So Councilwoman Torres, if you're ready and can unmute, it'd be great if you could say something, say hi.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, my connection is a little shaky, but thank you, Chris. Nice to see everyone, and thank you so much for holding a second public meeting. I think it's just really important for folks to know both what questions they have and make sure that those get answered, particularly if you live in the neighborhoods that are affected, or if you utilize these corridors for your transportation, or if you live along them. So thank you so much, Chris, and thanks to the Dottie team. Appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Torres. You're totally welcome. Councilman Flynn, I'd love to say a few words. That'd be great.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, I want to welcome everybody here, especially those who are resident along Irving or along Bates Avenue. The Bear Valley neighborhood is actually holding its own RNO meeting tonight, so I don't know how many folks from Bear Valley might be here as opposed to going to their own meeting, which starts in about 20 minutes online also. But thank you for being here. As most of you know, I did leaflet Irving Street because when this did go to the voters in 2017 as a bond issue, it was a neighborhood bikeway, and it's been changed now to a higher level that would require eliminating parking. And I believe there's an equity issue here that has to be explored first, and that we should look at other alternatives before we eliminate parking along Irving Street. So I'm hoping that there are a lot of folks here from Irving. Please put your questions in the chat and your concerns and email to the project team about how that would affect you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilman Flynn. Thanks for eloquently describing kind of the challenges that we're facing here. And we are excited to share this with you and hear all your input. So thanks for setting the stage for us. Okay, Geneva, I'll go to the next slide.
Thank you. So we're here in March, and as I mentioned, we had our first open house in February, and last fall is when we we're able to collect a lot of data. Just as with any transportation project, we want to make sure that we're making data-driven decisions that really meet where we are in Denver today. So we collected that data, we did some calibration, we said we might need to make some tweaks to projects and make sure that they're really fitting the character of our streets today with the speeds and volumes that we have. We've been working on draft concepts, which is what we'll be sharing this evening. And then we'll take all this content and feedback, oh my gosh, can I not speak tonight? And turn it around into more advanced designs later this summer and into the fall. And because these are bond funded, it's just a kind of a color of money thing. So it means that they are funded and that they will be installed between 2022, maybe into 2023, but really we're hoping to have projects installed next year. And tonight I'm gonna run a couple of poll questions coming up, kind of getting with what Councilwoman Torres was talking about of who do we have here tonight with us. We're going to demo how to use this feedback tool. We're gonna have lots of Q&A. Then we're gonna dive into Irving, talk about Bates, and then close with some next steps. And through all of that, we have Q&A sessions. So don't fret, we will have time to answer questions this evening. And so with that, we will run a poll, and I actually can't see it on my screen, but I know it's showing on your screen. And this is going to, actually, Julia, do you want to talk on what this poll is asking?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, I can explain it. So my name is Julia Walker. I am an urban planner with OB Consulting. So I'm starting a poll now. You should be seeing on your screen, but we just want to get a better idea of who's joining us tonight. Your relationship to the streets that we're talking about this evening, and which street you're most interested in, either Irving or Bates. If you're having trouble viewing this poll on your screen, if you're calling it from the phone, feel free to provide this information in the chat bar, or if you just like to talk about it more privately with us, feel free to give us a call or give us an email. We'll also be having an after meeting survey that you can fill out that will provide us with your contact info and just your corridors of interest in relationship to the area. So I'm seeing some of you taking the poll. About half of you have gone through the poll so far. I can give it a couple more seconds to let you finish up providing your answers. Okay, so it seems like the poll participation slowed down a bit, so I'm going to close it and I can share the results. So you should be seeing some of the poll results, but I can explain it. A majority of you live on or near one of the streets that we're talking about this evening. And another popular one is that you travel along either Irving or Bates.
9 automobiles.
And I'm seeing a lot of interest in Irving. So yeah, we're excited to talk with you tonight. And thank you for participating.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Julia. And if I just remind everybody to mute your line so we don't all get a bunch of background noise, that would be great. That was a good polling question. We really wanted to know what our community was here and who's coming to this meeting. So that's great. I'm going to pass it off to Steph Leonard to talk through some of the ways that we have set up that you can give us input besides this meeting, and we think that's really important, which is why we wanted to talk about it really at very first. So let me move the slide to that, and Steph, I'll pass to you.
Great, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Steph Leonard. I am an urban planner with OV Consulting. We have, as both Chris and Geneva mentioned, we're wanting to have multiple Q&A sessions to get real-time feedback, but we also want to know what you think of these concept designs that have been developed so far. So the primary way that we're hoping you provide feedback is through a new website that we've created where you can look at all of the different concept designs and comment directly, just as if we were at an in-person meeting and we'd have a roll plot map. You can go through and see all the different corridors. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can walk through how to use this tool. So just bear with me while I pull up the right screen. All right, so we have created a bit.ly to help you get to this, access the site a little easier. It's bit.ly / WDSS West Denver Safer Streets comment. So when you go to that bit.ly, which is on the slide deck as well, and we'll make sure we send out via email, there's a main landing page for all of the West Denver Safer Streets corridors. So we have some information here about the project. And then just immediately you see where our draft concept designs are located. So we have so far published for Irving and Bates. So I'll go ahead and click on, Bates has a little more information in it, so I'll start with this one. And so West Bates, it's going to be a neighborhood bikeway. We get a lot of questions about what a neighborhood bikeway is, so we've linked to a handy dandy bilingual fact sheet so you can learn more about how the city is defining a neighborhood bikeway. This explains that we're wanting to get your input on the concept design, and it's split up into different sections. And then we've also included this content below to help you understand what you're looking at. So these are the different components of a neighborhood bikeway for Bates, and we provided some pictures of what it might look like in real time. So I'll go ahead and start. We have 2 sections for Bates, so you can switch between Lamar to Golden or Fenton Street to Raleigh Street. And you can see that it's kind of hard to read initially, so you can go ahead and use the zoom feature, and you can zoom in and see exactly what we have outlined in the concept design. So for example, at South J Street, we're proposing installing a neighborhood traffic circle and removing parking on each side of the intersection here. About 25 feet of parking, that's called daylighting, and that helps to increase visibility at intersections. So say you really like or don't like this feature or any feature on here, you can go to this comment button. So once it's activated, you'll get a little plus sign. You can click on it and type in your information, add your comment, and you don't have to include your email, but it helps us so that we can follow up with you directly afterwards about your comment. And you can go ahead and classify it as either a suggestion or a question about the feature, and that's when the email is especially important too. And then if you have a comment, well, first, let me just walk you through. So you can scroll and kind of maneuver around this single section. And then when you're ready to go to the next section, you just click next, and it allows you to see the next piece of the corridor. You will have to kind of zoom in and out again once it loads, so that you can view it at the level you'd prefer. And then if you have just a general comment about a corridor, you can leave those general comments down here. You just have to confirm you're a human. And then I'll just show you an easy feature. So if you're wanting to comment on both, then you can just come up here to the corner and click between the two. So now we're on Irving, and you can see, as I'm sure you all know, Irving is a little bit longer of a corridor. So we have multiple sections here that you can do the same feature where you zoom in. Right now we're at Amherst to Yale, and you can see what's proposed in this section specifically. And the same features, you're able to comment. So once you see that little plus sign, you can add your comment. And something that's nice too, once you leave a comment, you can like other people's comments and you can reply to their comments. So it's a way of kind of engaging with folks. So once this is populated, you can read through what people have said and you can interact with those comments as well. And this has the same general comments piece. Just one final piece before I wrap up the demo. Just wanted to show you Down here, if you missed our first meeting, you can also catch our English and Spanish meeting recordings. This is also where the FAQ is linked as a bilingual version. And then just highlighting the multiple ways that you can stay in contact with the project team. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and we'll answer a few questions about this tool.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steph. That was good. It's really important to us to run you through that so that you know how to give us specific feedback. There's a lot of information to cover in all the corridors, and everybody's really interested in the area right around their place. And what this does is give you a way to comment right at the location you care about. And then another thing, Steph, is that other people can see the comments that got left so that you can see kind of what your neighbors and different folks think as well. So I think, go ahead, Steph.
I saw one question in here, will this meeting be available to watch later for those who aren't able to see it live? Yes, we're going to be posting this video on the city website, but then we'll also be, cutting portions out and putting it on the Compost site so you can see like specific content for Irving there with the concept design and how to walk through these concept designs.
Yeah, thanks. You guys might not know, Conveo is just the name of the platform we're using to do that whole thing she just showed you. D is just the website. And okay, so I think what we wanted to do now, we wanted to see if there are any questions about how do I give feedback, how do I get in touch with the project team, those kind of things at this first stopping point. And then I saw a lot of chat questions that are kind of specific to the corridors. We're going to go through each corridor and then kind of talk about those together at one time. Is how we'll handle that. So Kevin, are there any questions that we should answer at this time about how to get in touch or how people's voices can be heard on this?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, so far we've received a few technical comments related to the Irving corridor, specifically about parking. So I just wanted to note that the next part of the meeting will focus on details about the corridors in specific. So we'll get a chance to cover those then. And then so far, we have had a few questions about some of the feedback in the tool. One of the questions we received is asking if the comments that are posted online would be public, or would those only be information that's private to the public team, to the project team?
Those comments will be public. And like I mentioned, there's a capacity to unfortunately, this is a brand new site, so we don't have any comments to show you right now, but there's a capacity to kind of interact, and you can like it, you can read through people's comments and it has an up or a down thumb. You can also reply directly. So if someone said part of what you want to say, but you want to add to it, you can reply to their comment. And so it allows for a little more actual like community engagement and interaction through this tool.
Yeah, great. I also wanted to remind people, and I know we're all adults, but we really hope this is a way we can have a civil discourse about these projects and have everybody's voice heard, and not like get into a fight with our neighbors and things. So all we're trying to do is create a platform in these COVID times where we can try to interact a little more and have a discussion. So thanks, Steph. Kevin, were there any other questions we should address at this time?
Yeah, we have attendees who are wondering if there's a legend for the map.
So the maps, the way that the concept designs are set up, we call out what is happening with the features. So like we're explaining what's happening there, but we can add an additional layer of a legend. If it's confusing, we can just add more pieces in there to help out.
And I'll also jump in with that. One of the good things that we have on that roll plot is a lot of call outs that just list in text kind of what's happening. So if you're a little less familiar with seeing engineering documents, that can help explain, okay, this is what this is doing, this is how it functions, this is how it benefits the street. And we're also going to be diving into some of that a little bit later tonight. So hopefully that will kind of give you all a bit more understanding of what you're seeing in those concept design documents.
Super. And also the on the maps that Steph was showing, you would see those callouts have English and Spanish language. So we wanted to make sure that everyone could kind of understand what's going on. I think let's move on from there. I think those are two pretty pretty good questions about how to engage with us, and we'll follow up again at the end, making sure you understand like where to go and how to get with us. So let me share my screen again. And Geneva, I think that you'll take it a little bit further here. So one sec. Great. Oh, I'm sorry. Just a reminder for people that joined us late, the interpreter's name is Ruth. She's on the Spanish audio channel, and this is just a reminder slide if you need a reminder about how to join Spanish language. So we wanted to have that at this point in the meeting. Give you all just a few seconds to read through that and hopefully join us if you haven't already on the Spanish channel. Okay, great. And if you still need help with that, you can type in the chat and we can help you. Okay, Geneva.
All right, thanks, Chris. So one of the good things that we have is a 2011 citywide bike plan that laid out lots of different routes and networks of ways that we can get around and help people biking get around the city. That was then updated in 2015, and these corridors were also confirmed in the citywide land use and transportation combined plan called Blueprint Denver, which was finalized in 2019. And those planning efforts identified with West Bates and South Irving Street as key corridors. And we'll dig into why those are really crucial corridors. But you can imagine that's because they connect schools and parks and trails, and they're really connecting people across the city. And the funding, as I mentioned, that these are bond funded projects as part of the whole suite of funding. And so we have the opportunity to now bring those lines on a map forward and implement them. And so you can see that we're talking about lots of different corridors tonight and focusing on these two. One of the really common questions that we received at our last meeting and that we've kind of been getting from the public is, why are these bike lanes here and how are they going to improve safety? And the reason why we're calling these projects West Denver Safer Streets is because it is our goal as a city to help everyone get around safely. And this is part of the city's Vision Zero efforts of eliminating all serious injuries and fatalities in transportation by 2030. And one of the ways that we can do that is by lowering speeds. It's by adding more comfortable and safe facilities for people to go if they don't want to drive, for instance. We also know that in general, wider roadways are correlated with higher speeds. So when we have the opportunity to narrow that roadway by something like a bike lane, we try to do that because we know it will help improve speeds and safety for everyone on the streets. And neighborhood bikeways, such as West Bates, that is a street that we're really aiming on calming traffic as much as we can. We're trying to bring speeds and volumes of vehicular traffic down so that it just makes it more comfortable, so that you can walk with your families, that you can feel comfortable to be on the streets in a different way, and that it really is just making it more prioritized for people who aren't in cars. Next slide, please. A couple of other questions that we've gotten and we just want to make sure are really clear. We get questions all the time. How will these bikeways be maintained? We know that Denver has snow, as we just saw this last weekend. And so just like with other elements of infrastructure across the city of Denver and the Department of Transportation Infrastructure will be maintaining the bikeways, including with snow and debris removal. And then another common question that we just want to make sure is really clear and that we're kind of getting out of the way, will trash, recycling, or compost pickup change? And the answer is no. For both projects, we are proposing some changes to the street, particularly on Irving, and we'll definitely talk about that more. In the design, there will be adequate space for trash and recycling bins in the buffer area. So people can still roll out your trash can on a Thursday night and it will be picked up on a Friday, just as an example. And I am going to hand it off to Chris to dig into Irving, because I think we have a lot of folks here who are interested in that corridor.
Thanks, Geneva. Yeah, I was looking at the chat. There's a lot of interest in Irving, which is I would expect. It's a very long corridor. We touch a lot of land uses, a lot of homes, schools, and different things. And it has, our implementation has significant benefits and significant impacts too. So Let's just kind of talk that through. So right now, where we are is we've been looking at a protected bike lane concept. Councilman Flynn talked about how it was a neighborhood bikeway in the beginning. We'll kind of talk through why that change happened and why we are where we are today. But protected bike lanes are bikeways on street that have horizontal and vertical buffers. So they have things going up and down, posts or little curbs to try to protect the bicyclist area. And it also narrows up the roadway, as Geneva was saying. So, not trying to skew this, right? I know there are challenges to this, but there are significant benefits too. We've spent a lot of time over the last 2 weeks speaking with the schools along the corridor. A lot of feedback about speeds, about volumes, about crossing safety and access to the school by bike and different things. So we think that there's a lot of destinations on this corridor that could really benefit from a calmer street. We're also looking at trying to create lower stress crossings. So for peds crossing Irving, trying to make that safer, trying to reduce speeding by narrowing the roadway up and narrowing the lanes up. A lot of bikeways along that corridor and a lot of transit connections too. So I think there's a lot of things on that column that make this a good place to look at something to do. So back to the why did we end up where we are? So when the planning, when Denver Moves was done, the planning study in like 2010, you know, it was sort of a high level look at the city, and we picked, the team then picked, you know, types and corridors. And then as we got into this phase of the project, what we need to do is really understand the street. And so we've gone and looked at every block, measured every block, measured speeds, measured volumes, looked at crash history, looked at parking data, looked at striping, where traffic signals are, where stop signs are, the whole gamut of elements to try to understand Irving Street and what it's like and what we'd like it to be, what the community said they'd like it to be in the planning study. The reason that it doesn't work as a neighborhood bikeway is real evident from these parts of this slide. Okay, so we have speeds of 30 plus miles an hour measured along most of the corridor, pretty high speeds. We've heard a lot of stories from talking to residents about accidents that have happened, speeding by their home or the schools. And the volumes are very high too. They're in Irving is really a collector street. It's kind of in there. The parking, so we did look at parking, and this stat's a little misleading, but in the whole corridor, the parking is about 20%, less than 20% occupied. There are places where there's specifically high parking occupancy, especially near the multifamily, and then some needs near the schools that are really obvious. So we've been trying to look and understand that. This chart in the top right shows the 3 different sort of bike categories that we've been looking at: neighborhood bikeway, bike lane, and then protected bike lane or shared use path. And you can see this just charts speed on the bottom versus volume. And our corridor is way far away from the neighborhood bikeway zone. And because of the type of street it is, you know, we are and engineering experience, we cannot make this street work as a neighborhood bikeway. So that's where we're at, and that's why we're looking at it. And we understand that there's impacts. So we want to talk about that. So let me show you. I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what it is that's being proposed. So this is a typical section. What that means is, like, if I were standing on the street looking down the street, right? And so this particular spot is kind of near Vassar, looking north. And I know that the widths are a little different in different parts, but this is a pretty good example of what we're doing. So we're showing 7-foot bike lanes, 3-foot buffers with vertical barriers, and 10-foot drive lanes. And I know there's been a lot of questions about, well, why can't we fit parking and all the elements in? You can see that the space is really challenged. And with the engineering guidance and criteria we have about needing to protect this, that width becomes difficult to kind of allocate to make everybody happy. I wanted to show this. This is the same place. Before, we were sort of standing on the road here looking to the right. To the right is north. And then this is from looking like from an airplane, right? Or a hot air balloon or a drone or whatever. This is Vassar Avenue, kind of that offset. And I just want to explain sort of what all these little lines mean. So when you look at it, you'll understand what you're looking at. So what the black lines here those are the existing face of curbs. So that's where the existing curb lines are. The white lines are painted stripes and the yellow dashed lines in the middle. So that would be painted stripes on the road. The black rectangles are 8-inch high asphalt curbs, kind of like you'd see in a parking lot to stop cars from going forward. And the circles are raised posts. They're those flexible posts that bend over if you hit them. This shows the dimensions of each of those and then the total width available. Like I said, we've gone out and measured every block and tried to really understand what's going on. The other things you see on the side streets are, these are called curb extensions. So what we're trying to do is shorten the crossings here. And they show vertical posts and striping and trying to narrow those up to make those work. The other thing I want to point out about this, and I know I'm taking a lot of time, but I really want people to understand what they're looking at. So these are all driveways to homes, and you'll see that we've gone through and taken the time at this level to show not putting vertical elements in front of those driveways. So if you'll see, like if this were your home, you'd see that we've maintained access to your driveway in and out. We thought that was important to point out that we've sort of at least gone to that level of detail and understanding what's going on. The other thing to take away from this is just like we've been seeing in the chat, this section requires a total removal of on-street parking along Irving. And we know that is a big issue. And so we want to kind of talk about that, but wanted you to understand what the trade-offs are and how we're kind of addressing the problem. So that's what this slide is about. So the parking impacts, we are proposing the removal of all on-street parking. We are looking at the school areas and a few other key locations to make sure we can accommodate bus loading and different activities like that. We are looking at disabled spaces, so handicap spaces along the street, and we're maintaining those in key locations. One thing about that, if you do not have a handicap space today and you think you need one or qualify for one, we will help you get in touch with that application process and make sure that we can help you navigate that. So I want everybody to know that. We think key areas of impacts are really near multifamily residential. We notice a lot of on-street parking activity near there, so we need to look at those a little closely. There's some really long block lengths in this area where if you had to park on a side street, it's quite a ways to get back to your home. So we're kind of taking a look at, what could we do in those places, and then near parks and schools. Okay, so just to kind of, I know there's a lot of questions to this, so we just thought we'd address it straight up because we fear people are going to ask it. So why is parking being removed on South Irving? So I think I've explained it's an important community corridor that we're looking at, connects churches, schools, community resources. So it's an important connection. The speeds and volumes are very high. And so in order to do a safe facility, we need to protect that facility. And we think that protection also has speed benefits, reducing speeds along Irving, which will help everybody. Due to those speeds, we need additional pedestrian safety enhancements, which I was alluding to when I showed you the bulb outs and different things. And unfortunately, as we've said, the existing street width, we can't do everything in the space that we have. And so this is where we are today. And this is the direction that we're moving. We understand that it has a lot of challenges for people. And I think that's where we are, is we want to present the ideas. We needed to get through and show what a concept would do and share it with you. So you could come back and tell us that you love it or you hate it, or here's some ideas. Okay, the other question we heard a lot of was, how did the city evaluate parking removal? How did we know, like, well, why remove parking here and why is that okay? So we did existing parking inventory and in the mornings. So we did high time residential, and then we're also going out to the schools. And right now they're back in person, even though they aren't at full capacity, and seeing how their operations work as well. So doing some observations, we saw that in most places the parking utilization is pretty low. understand, we know that most of the homes have driveways, understand there are a lot of challenges with the new multifamily, or, more people per household ordinance, and there's no alley serve access. So we kind of want to work that through. And then also we looked at the side streets. So I want to make that clear. We looked at Irving, and we also looked at a block on either side of Irving to look at how those streets were. And we found in almost all places, the parking utilization was pretty low. So just, kind of take that with the long block lengths and the multifamily as sort of a total picture of what we see. So with that, I want to take some questions from the chat. I know there are a lot of questions, so I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other better. And then Steph, why don't you pitch a few questions to us? What we're trying to do is look for common themes and try to address questions that a lot of people had. And then we will answer every question in our sort of document at the end of this. So Steph.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have received some just kind of general comments that are all somewhat thematic. So I'll start with, this is more of a comment that is also kind of leaning towards a question. So I'll start with this one. We live on Irving. If the bike lane obstructions are put in, my husband, who is in a wheelchair and cannot access the driveway, will be confined to the house. We have to park on the street if we need to get in the car. We cannot afford to pour a new driveway. So what are some options in a situation like this? And I'll pass this one to Geneva.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And we try really hard to, like as Chris was saying, we took a full inventory of any existing ADA space, and we've made modifications to the design so we can help people continue to access that really critical parking. So if you or if someone you know needs an accessible parking permit, email us at bikes@denvergov.org, and I can help put you in contact with the person. There's a whole process for that application process, but we can help connect you to that city resource.
Great. So let's see, this is a question from Melissa. There are bike lanes on both Yale and Dartmouth, which see more traffic daily than Irving does, and those bike lanes don't have post blocking on-street parking. So the question was why we are adding the protections here versus why they aren't on Yale and Dartmouth. So maybe I will send this off to Chris.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steph. So engineering standards evolve over time and criteria. And so if you drove, say, if you remember the Valley Highway and how the interchanges there were built in the 50s, those aren't up to our standards today for safety. And the same thing happens with bike facilities. So some bike facilities that were installed maybe 10 years ago, we wouldn't necessarily put the same type of facility on the road today. We have a lot better guidance and data on speed and volume and their interaction with bicyclists, pedestrians, and safety. So that's kind of why we're doing this a little differently. And I would ask, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. If we remember. Thank you. I know everybody's got a lot going on, but I appreciate your patience.
Hey, Chris, could I jump in real quick there?
Sure, David.
Sure. So I know I was the project manager on Dartmouth, and we actually just installed that last summer. And again, just like what's being discussed here, we followed very specific criteria that guide us whether to use protection and make a protected bike lane or simply just a buffer. So it really is, we go where the data takes us. We don't come in with a predetermined design in mind. We start with the data, and then that determines what type of installation the street gets.
Great, Dave. That's a much more succinct answer than mine. But yep, thank you. Okay, And thank you for muting everyone. I really appreciate it. Steph, let's take a few more. I think there's a lot of interest in this, so I don't want to cut this short.
Yeah, we've gotten quite a few questions about how a protected bike lane on Irving could help address speed. We've gotten quite a few comments about how the existing speeds on Irving are fairly high, and that's a major concern. So I will go ahead and pass this maybe up to Geneva.
Great. Yeah, definitely. So I think that there are kind of two different things at play. And one is I'll get to kind of how adding different infrastructure can help mitigate speeds, but also it helps explain why the protection itself is needed. So knowing that the corridor is posted at 25, but we have prevailing speeds as high as 35 miles per hour, that 10 miles per hour speed difference is pretty high. And we know that if you're biking on a street and you get passed by a car going 30 or 35 miles per hour, it really does affect both how comfortable you feel and how safe it is for you. So those high speeds that we see today happen for a number of reasons. One of which being that we know that Irving is a very hilly corridor, and it's really easy to pick up speed as you're going downhill. We all know that. And so we see a speed differential as well, north and south, depending on where we are in the corridor. So part of that too is that the street in some areas is pretty wide. And as we were talking about with parking, we understand that there are some blocks that have more parking utilization, and that happens to be where we have more residential density and where lots of people are living, and we get that. There are also blocks where there isn't a lot of on-street parking. And so that tends to kind of widen out the street itself. And it means that the effective travel lane is quite wide. And so that means that it just feels easier to go faster. So by adding some formalization on the street and adding and narrowing travel lanes, adding in a buffer with a vertical element, it just means that as a driver, you are going to drive slower, because it's not going to feel quite as easy to go fast. And I think the best way to think about this is when you're in a car and you're on a wide street or a wide road, you can go 10 over the speed limit and not necessarily know it, because it just doesn't feel the same as if you're driving in a little bit more constrained environment. So that's one of the ways that it helps mitigate speeds. And the other last thing that I'll say is at the intersections, and we've heard this, that it can be really hard to cross Irving, it can be hard to cross some of those side streets. But as we've been adding curb extensions, that means that it just takes a little bit longer to turn in a vehicle, which means it's going to slow those turning movements, which will make it safer for people on the street and if you're crossing the street as well. So hopefully that wasn't too jargony and people understood it. Just think about how when you're driving, how easy it is to speed, and this will help with making it a little bit harder to go over the speed limit.
Thanks, Geneva.
Great. Yeah.
I think we have time maybe for one more before we move on to Bates.
Yeah, and before we wrap up with that, I do want to tell everybody, I know if we were in person in a public meeting, we'd be having a discussion around a table and talking about this. And so we apologize that it's just not possible. And we aren't trying to shortchange these questions or not take them. I think we're just trying to make sure we get to everything. Because we want to talk about Bates as well. But we really will go back through. We really want you to, the key way to communicate with us is really want you to look at those concept designs and give us specific feedback about an area you're concerned about or what you're concerned about or interested in. That's the very best way for us to get your input and with the sort of opportunities that we have available to us. But we'll go through that again at the end, and you can call us, you can email us, but that tool that Steph ran through is going to be really great. So we're not trying to dodge any questions here. We're just trying to keep this within a reasonable amount of time. So go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, we are getting a lot of kind of general comments, and we're using that as well. Like later on when we do the FAQ, we kind of thematically lump those together so we can address them as like a, the response instead of, we want you to know that we're receiving the comments as well. So we have a question from Doug about why a bike lane is needed on both sides of the street on Irving Street. So maybe Chris, from an engineering perspective, you could start off with that and then see if anyone wants to add anything.
Okay, so yeah, so you see, I think I saw in the chat something about Broadway, and so when we have one-way streets, we kind of go with traffic, right? So one-way street, we might have a one-way bike lane that works, or we might have a two-way bike lane in that case. The reason we have bike lanes in both directions here is Irving is the corridor that really connects the whole area, the whole west side of Denver together. And the other streets aren't as really continuous. And so if we did say a bike lane in one direction on Irving and then tried to get another direction on a different street, it gets really confusing for the users and doesn't make a good system. It's kind of like if you had one-way auto streets. Irving would be one way for cars one way, and then we sort of work over to Knox and down and around the other way. That's really not in a transportation system what we're looking for, but maybe I'll pitch to Geneva, just kind of our thinking about, I think it really comes down to why Irving and why not something else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Irving, as many of you know, is a collector street. So it means that it's one of those streets that's really continuous, and it is, because it's only 2 blocks, sometimes more, sometimes less, but mostly 2 blocks off of Federal. It also is a continuous north-south route. And through West Denver and Southwest Denver, there aren't that many north-south routes that are really continuous, that are signalized at some of those key intersections like Evans and Florida. And so by having a bike facility on a route like that, which is convenient for driving, it also means that it's a really convenient place to provide connection for people. And we know that there are tons of schools on this corridor. We have Gust and Johnson and Strive and Kepner, and providing a place for kids and staff to get to those schools is really important. And also knowing that it's one of those connection points that we could provide an on-street connection to help people get to the trail. So we know that Sanderson Gulch is a beautiful place. People like to go there. And wouldn't it be great that you could leave your house and bike there and feel really comfortable with that, with your family or with your kids? So those are some of those reasons why we think that this street in particular is important. And it's why it was selected 10 years ago in a citywide plan, and why we are advancing it, because we think it provides some of those really critical connections.
Do you mind, Geneva, if you and I dig just a little deeper into that? Because I know, so like Lowell Boulevard has come up, and it comes up in the chat. When we were looking at the area, we sort of said, hey, there's Lowell too. And maybe just, kind of dig into that, like, why isn't Lowell good enough and why doesn't it work? And I'll start and I'll say, well, if we implemented Lowell today, we would implement protected bike lanes on Lowell, and it's the same sort of impacts that we're talking on Irving. So I get how that seems a little frustrating to people, but Lowell also doesn't serve the same destinations we're talking about that Geneva was just saying. And we've been hearing a lot from the schools, like they want traffic calming, they want things different on Irving. So, and there's a difference of opinion too, but the schools really care about safety. So Geneva, maybe from your perspective to share with the audience.
I think you covered it really well. And one of the reasons why we continue to talk about safety, and I think the comments that I've been reading tonight, people are saying people go really, really fast. I was reading comments saying that our data is bad and the speeds are much higher than what we were marking. And that, in some ways that's rare for us. People often are like, no, it's not as bad as you think it is. But in this case, we're seeing from the data and from your lived experience in this area that there is a speeding problem and that there are safety concerns, and seeing that kids who are biking to school are going to bike on the sidewalk. Well, maybe we have an opportunity to provide a place on street for kids to bike to school. And what Chris was saying too about crashes, there is a high crash rate on this corridor, and we see that at the signalized intersections. So we see that there are so many different opportunities to provide safer crossings to people, to provide slower turn movements, to help mitigate crashes as much as we can, both so that it's safer for all of us to get around, and it's safer for our neighbors to get around.
Great, thank you, Geneva. So yeah, thanks for digging just a little deeper, and we're happy to follow back with folks on that too. But let's I know there are people here that want to hear about Bates too. I know that Irving was kind of the hot topic, but let's I'm going to share my screen again, and then we can talk about Bates, which is a different facility type. And I'll let me share here. Great. And I will let Geneva kind of talk us through the Bates corridor. Thank you.
Thanks. So Bates is a wonderful little street. It's like down in the corner of the city. And so our study area is from Lamar to Raleigh. And this corridor is really different from Irving. Not only is it east-west, but we also know that it connects with a number of schools. We have a high school and several elementary schools. It goes around the park. It crosses Sheridan. And then it's really very residential. And so this is what we consider to be a really prime candidate to become a neighborhood bikeway. And that's not necessarily a term that we have used a lot in the city thus far, but it's a really great way for us to provide more pedestrian and safety benefits and just calm the street and make it safer for everyone. So as I was talking about, connects lots of destinations. We have tons and tons of schools, connects to the existing Raleigh Street bike lane, connects with transit. And then we are also interested in providing a more comfortable connection across Sheridan, understanding that that is a pretty big separation east and west between the two parts of the corridor. And so you're probably wondering, what the heck is a neighborhood bikeway? Well, this is a great street that is low volume and as low speed as we can get it, and it prioritizes people who are walking and biking. So the way that we do that is by lowering speeds by adding things like speed humps, traffic circles, curb extensions, median refuge islands to help you cross if the street is a little bit wider. If we have more volume on a street than we would like, we will add a diverter. There is not that issue for Bates, so we won't be diverting, but that is one of those tools in the toolbox to say, we just won't allow for through traffic. We also are focusing at the intersection as much as we can. So for instance, at Sheridan, where it's signalized, and other places along the corridor, if we can add crosswalks, if we can slow traffic as it moves through the intersection. And then this photo that you can see in the lower right-hand corner, this is Bayard Avenue, kind of in the West Wash Park neighborhood. And you can see what this looks like. This is paint and post curb extensions that even though that is a fairly nice crossing, it just makes it a little bit shorter and easier for pedestrians to cross. And so as I talked about, we have a lot of these different elements that we're going to get into. Raised crosswalks is one that I didn't mention before. And what that is it's almost like it combines a crosswalk and a speed hump. So particularly we see those at intersections where we just want to add a little bit more safety and make sure that it's extra comfortable for people to cross the street. And it also slows vehicular traffic because they have to go over a speed hump. The last piece is wayfinding. And that is actually part of our new standard on all of our bikeway projects. We will be adding these incredibly cute wayfinding signs. I want one for my own living room where they have bears on bikes. And it's a goofy sign, but it's also just showing that these are places for kids, it's places for families. It's really a place that we're trying to make as high comfort as possible. Next slide, please. And so why this street is good for a neighborhood bikeway and why it's really different from Irving is that while it is a posted speed at 25, the prevailing speeds that we see are lower than that. They're still higher than we want. The target for us is as low as 20, if not lower. But the speeds are just in a much different kind of category. And then those traffic volumes as well, you can see are as high as 1,550 a day and as low as 495. And that's great. We like to see low volumes on the streets because it means that there are fewer kind of conflict movements for there to be if you're biking and you have a car going around you. So what this looks like in practice is, this is the example that Chris had shown earlier. And what it is sort of a at every intersection, we're really focusing and saying, how can we make this better for people who are walking in their neighborhood and accessing the park? And how do we make it a little bit more comfortable if someone is biking on the street? So you can see the kind of bigger circle that has a red circle in the middle of it, that is a traffic circle. And so what that will look like is it just means that it's almost like a mini roundabout, and you just kind of go around it. It slows movements through the intersection, and it means that there is a little bit of, it just slows how you have to go around the intersection and then reestablish yourself in the lane. And so what we're doing is we're adding some kind of a pattern of curb extensions and traffic circles. And the curb extension is really similar to that photo that I just pointed out. And all that does is it shortens the crossing distance. It means that anyone who's crossing the street is a little bit more visible. And so the combination of those together will really help lower the speeds. So you can see that in the pattern from Lamar over to the park. We have raised crossings, we have speed humps or speed cushions, and we're generally just trying to calm the street as much as we can, kind of keeping with that neighborhood character of residential and schools, knowing that there is a lot of pedestrian movement and people who are walking and trying to get to the park. So that's what you'll see in this concept design. And then a couple other things that I want to point out. Just in front of the school at Gray, we have a little bit of narrowing effect going on. So what you can see is it kind of provides a pinch point of sorts at a T intersection. So if you're coming, and one of the highest points of speed that we have along the whole corridor is right here. So in particular, we really wanted to mitigate speeds there. So that also provides a shorter crossing distance for anyone accessing the school. The circle on the right is of a median in the middle of the street, and that is just to provide a little bit of friction so that cars will go slower on the street itself. So you can see that this kind of a bikeway treatment is really different from Irving because the street itself is quite different. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for walking us through that, Geneva. And yeah, I think that's the key point is they're very different streets and they have really different safety needs. Steph, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and love if two questions related to Bates that might have come through. Love to chat with people about those.
Yeah, so we haven't gotten any Bates specific questions so far, but we do have a few general questions. One person asked how these comments that folks are leaving on concept designs, the draft concept designs, how that will be used and how the city can use those to address any specific concerns. So I can split answer.
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll let Geneva pop in. So from a design, so like I'm leading the concept design piece, and that's the engineering piece that lays out how the streets all work. We will take those specific comments into account. We really want to know, if there's a certain place where things happen, if there's a safety issue or a need, or maybe something that we might not be aware of because we don't, you guys are the experts about the street in the area. By using it, we will incorporate those things. And I think one of the comments I saw was like, is this a done deal? And maybe I'll put Geneva in the tough spot of kind of addressing that piece.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I think the grand answer is that we are collecting feedback, and that the more specific the feedback is, the more it can really help us tweak the designs. We are operating and trying to fit, I think if we kind of go up a little bit and talk about how we are working across the city to meet some really bold citywide goals. So that's from a safety perspective, that's from a sustainability perspective, that's from we know that a lot of people are moving to Denver perspective, and we need to provide better ways to allow people to get around, to move more people better. So from that, we are working to kind of create the Denver that we envision, and that was envisioned more than 10 years ago, of how do we build out bike networks? And within that, there are definitely opportunities for us to improve upon these designs. We want to know if you say, this just won't work for this reason, or this particular intersection is really hard for me to cross. Can we make that better for me to cross? Or letting us know maybe on one of those really long blocks, if there's something in particular that you think maybe could be tweaked with the design. That's where we are, is understanding how can we modify our designs and make them work for as many people as we can. And that's what we are going to continue to move into the future and try to work to meet all of these different competing interests that we have.
And thanks, Geneva.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was a good answer. Steph, any other ones, or should we? And we can also circle back on some Irving ones we didn't catch. We have a few minutes here where we'd love to spend it sort of talking about things people want to hear about.
Yeah, I guess there were a couple questions that Geneva, you kind of alluded to the answers of for. We've gotten some questions about how these bikeways align with the city's Vision Zero goals and the city's climate change goals. So this might be a Geneva and Tag Team David effort as well.
Yeah, definitely. I will pitch this one to David to answer.
Great, sounds good. And forgive me if you hear my children shouting in the background. So the question is about the city's goals. Is that correct?
How these new bikeways align, like help support climate change goals and zero.
Sure. So you could definitely talk about that. So with respect to climate change goals, we know that cars are a major part of carbon emissions. And so if we can replace trips, car trips, most trips that people take are less than, anywhere between 2 to 5 miles or shorter. So that's a significant amount of car travel. And you replace that car travel with walking and biking, then we can make a serious impact on our carbon emissions. With respect to Vision Zero, there's a lot of research connected to both, getting people out of cars. So, if someone's never in a car, then they can't be involved in a serious injury or accident, but also the slowing down speeds. And a pedestrian hit at 30 miles per hour has an 80% chance of surviving, but then hit at 40%, 40 miles per hour, that same pedestrian has a 90% chance of dying. So we see that with every incremental increase in speed makes any event more dangerous for our vulnerable road users. And so in order to get to Vision Zero, we have to, 1, slow people down, and we have to, 2, give people a good, safe alternative to car trips and convenient. And that's how this infrastructure relates to both those goals.
Great. Thank you, David.
Great, thanks, David. And just for people, so Vision Zero, just as we say these things all the time, but that's the city's goal of having 0 traffic-related fatalities. And so that's a big charge and a big goal, and we take it seriously. So thanks for explaining that. Steph, any other things we should address?
There were a couple, there was a question of recognizing that Irving has a speeding problem, and called out specifically between Yale and Harvard, and that can be a serious safety issue for bikers. They were asking about whether, obviously there's protected bike lanes proposed, but could other speed mitigation treatments be installed on Irving as well? And they listed specifically like a 3-way stop, a traffic circle, or speed bumps. So would that be feasible on a corridor like this? So Geneva's hand.
I can take that one. Yes, definitely. I think for that, let us know where you're seeing the most speeding issues, and if you think there are places that are particularly hard to cross, and then we can take a look from the engineering side of the house and figure out what's feasible So I think with any bikeway project, we have an opportunity to address the street holistically and add in other elements. But let our team kind of do the dirty work on that. And if you all can use the comment tool to get into some of those specifics, that would be really helpful. And I will also say I saw a lot of comments about deliveries and making sure that there's space for delivery. And so knowing that that is an interest for people, that too would be a really helpful comment for us. There might be some modifications that we can make to the design to fit in maybe some mixing zones, and we're trying to make this work for as many people as possible. So the more that the comments can be really detailed and specific on the map, that will help our team quite a lot. So thank you.
Great, Geneva. I think with that we should kind of we'll move through the last few slides here, because I want to make sure we spend enough time where people know where to go get the concept designs and leave their specific comments. I know there are a lot. I do want to, at this point, I just want to pretty much commend everyone on this meeting. I think I've been kind of watching the chat. I know we have a lot of it's very personal for people, and we have a lot of strong opinions, but I felt like it was really civil, and it's okay to have strong disagreements, and really appreciate that. So we'll take that chat, we record it, and we'll take it seriously. So thank you to everybody for providing that input to us, and in a civil way. That makes a big difference for us. Okay, let me share my screen again and just kind of make sure we cover these last points again. So there we go. So what happens now? I think there's a few questions like, what is this thing? How does it impact me? Can it be changed? And what happens now? So this is the what happens now piece. And so we are entering into a very open comment period, and we're going to keep this comment open for at least a month. That's our plan right now, and make sure everybody has time to go check out the materials and provide us feedback and input. Call us, do all those things, and I'll show those options again next. So once we go through that comment period and we sort of refine these concept designs and everything, then we'll pass them along to a 60% design. So it starts moving into more of a formal design process. And part of this is that we really want to implement these as part of this bond program, and we really want to get improvements made soon. So we're going to do the design process, move into that, but we are still, we're re-engaging again. We're going to meet with all the schools again. And so kind of share community input, show how we respond to that input, show how we're responding to schools' input. We've got focus groups scheduled, so I think we're meeting with a few folks even tomorrow. But if your neighborhood organization wants to have us, we're reaching out to every single one of them. We're in contact. We're trying to schedule meetings so we can have a little smaller group discussion than this big meeting, and maybe even have a chance to talk instead of just chatting. That'd be great. So just send an email to us at bikes@denver.gov if you don't feel like that's happened. And we are going to have another public meeting that hasn't been scheduled yet, but that'll be in summer, fall of this year. So those are the next steps. Oops. And then just to sort of reiterate again, if you missed this before, and we'll be sending out a follow-on email after this to all the people on this meeting, plus our contact list with this info as well. So we really think the best way for you to get this information and give us comments is go to that this website, this web address right here, the bit.ly/WDSS comment. The caps matter. So we have set up a few of these. So if you type it in incorrectly, we should get you to the right place anyway. But this is the best way, and that'll take you right to that site that Steph showed you, and you should be able to navigate that and find the information you need. You can go to our overall project website, which is bit.ly/West Denver Safer Streets. That'll get you kind of the same place eventually. There's a lot more information out there. And then these are other ways to contact us. We know that this might not be the best way for everyone. So you can sign up for office hours by going to our website. There's a sign up link there. and say, hey, I want to talk to somebody in person, one-on-one, or I think maybe 2-on-1 or 3-to-1, a small group. Anyway, you can email us at bikes@denvergov.org. It's best if you put West Denver Safer Streets in the subject line so we make sure it gets handled quickly and goes to the right people. Or you can give us a call at 720-865-WEST West. So those are the ways we're really trying to connect with everybody and make sure we hear your voices. I think that's the end of our presentation, but I thought I'd pitch it back to Geneva to sort of close us out. No?
Sure, I can. So thank you all so much. I definitely was reading the chat during the meeting, and I feel like there are definitely still some concerns that we are hearing on Irving, not so much on Bates, but we'll dig into the feedback. Know that it may take us maybe a couple of days to get back to your emails or your phone calls, but do know that I'm the one who sees those and make sure that they get responded to. So if you're slow, if I'm taking too long, I apologize in advance for that, but we really will sit down with you and chat and try to understand your needs and how we can work with you as best we can. So thank you again for your time this evening. If you have any questions, just let us know, and we will reconvene in a little bit later this year.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and appreciate the involvement. We'll be in touch with everyone again very soon. Take care.